Welcome to Emotional Sobriety. I feel so privileged tonight to have both Allen and Joe C. from Rebellion Dogs here with us. And they're going to be getting into some Dr. Seuss, which may sound a little strange, but trust me, it dovetails perfectly with what we do here in the program.
Oh, the places emotional sobriety will go.
That's so true, Joe. That's gonna be the title of this show. Look, what was it about 2 years ago? You and I were doing a workshop, I think, for the what was it for a group in Arizona? What's the
Yeah,
name of that?
the free thinkers
The Free Thinkers.
living sober group. Yeah.
That's right. And I remember the one workshop that you brought up and you said, "Hey, I think I have a great reference for emotional sobriety." And I said, "You said a Dr. Seuss book." And I go, "Really?" And then you started to share some of the stuff. And my God, I've read that book probably at least a dozen times to the kids, but I looked at it from a whole different perspective, when you shared with it. So tonight we're going to be looking at Dr. Seuss and emotional sobriety.
It's all there, like being stuck and getting unstuck.
That's what it is, isn't it? That's
Living
exactly what that book.
consciously,
Yes.
realizing that no one's coming, paddling your own canoe, living life on life's terms, realizing that no one's coming, accepting what is, living a purposeful life. It's all in, the simplest stories we tell our children. And Dr. Seuss was a master.
He was, wasn't he? And you're right. See, it really captures the essence of emotional sobriety, right? It really says that we can become the determining force in our own life.
Yeah.
And that movement towards that experience is part of that waking up, and part of the waking up that we need to do if we're going to become emotionally sober.
I'm so excited about this show.
Yeah,
Are
me
you
too.
ready? Do you want me to
Yeah,
read
right.
something?
I'm ready for you. Let's do it. Patrick, are you ready? You got your
Uh,
Dr. Sears on?
that was a really good priming. I'm stoked. Let's hear it.
Okay, so we're talking about our young hero going out in the world.
That's right.
You're looking up and down streets, look 'em over with care. About some you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not so good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down. In that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's opener there. It's all wide open air. Out there, things can happen and frequently do to people as brainy and footsy as you. And when things start to happen, don't worry, don't stew, just go right along. You'll start happening too. Oh, the places you'll go. You'll be on your way. You'll be seeing great sights. You'll join high flyers. You'll soar to great heights. You won't lag behind because you have all the speed. You'll pass the whole gang and you'll soon take the lead. Wherever you fly, you'll be the best of the best. Wherever you go, you'll top all the rest, except when you don't, because sometimes you won't. I'm sorry to say so, but sadly it's true. The bang ups and hang ups can happen to you. You can get all hung up in a prickly perch, and your gang will fly off. You'll be left in the lurch. Want to stop there?
Yeah,
We can
let's
talk
stop
about the
there.
lurch.
Let's unpack that for a while. I mean, look, God, doesn't it just captures the unpredictability of life, doesn't it? And it says that, my God, it part of this experience, part of this human experience we're having is we're gonna be disappointed. Things are gonna happen that are gonna be painful and that are going to be challenging to deal with. And yet there's a way, right? There's a way to digest those experiences and to grow from them. And that's what I think emotional sobriety is all about, Joe.
It absolutely is. It is about, being present, right?
Yeah.
It is
Right.
about knowing my limits,
Yeah.
knowing that life is a balance of reason and structure, but also chaos and disorder.
Yep. There it is.
So shitty things happen to good people all the time.
Yep.
And
But
sometimes the bad guys win.
that's right. Well, listen, you're capturing the paradox of life, aren't you?
Yeah.
When you say there's order and there's chaos. I mean, it's so true. These life is filled with these paradoxes. And another way of thinking about emotional sobriety is that we learn how to deal with the paradox rather than object to it, rather than get mad at the paradox, rather than get upset about it. Is we learn, as you said, Joe, so well, is that to accept it and see what it means to us and what we could do to deal with that and integrate that into our consciousness and into our life.
Or as the doctor says, you'll come down from the lurch with an unpleasant bump. And the chances are then you'll be in a slump. And when you're in a slump, it's not much fun. Unslumping yourself is not easily done. You will come to a place where the streets are not marked. Some windows are lighted, but mostly they're dark. A place you could sprain both your elbow and chin. Do you dare to stay out? Do you dare to go in? How much can you lose? How much can you win? And if you go in, should you turn left or right and 3/4, or maybe not quite, or go around back and sneak in from behind? Simple, it's not. I'm afraid you'll find for a mind maker upper to make up their mind.
Oh, I love that, man. I feel like I'm trying to get unslumped, Joe. And I've got a few bumps from this one, baby. I gotta tell you, man. But God, it's so, God, he captures it, doesn't he? He really captures life.
Yeah.
For years, I didn't think I could bear slumps and bumps. I thought I had to run from that or use over that. And it's just all very new to me that like the work is about accepting.
It's so true though, isn't it? And look, one way we can define recovery is that we stay clean and sober when it would make more sense to get drunk or to get high. And I think emotional sobriety helps us, sustain our recovery, right? It helps us stay committed to the process. And that's the good news, man. That's the excitement that I have about this thing. It creates I was going to say an unshakable foundation, but that kind of gives the wrong impression that we're not going to be shook because
Right.
we are. It just creates a foundation that we can recover our balance from.
And to know that no matter how well we've been doing, more slumps are coming.
Yeah, that's right. More slumps are coming. That's true. They're really true. More slumps are coming.
You'll remember from the book he talks about, I fear towards a most useless place, you'll find your way to the waiting place. For people just waiting for a train to go, or a bus to come, or a plane to go, or the mail to come, or the rain to go, or a phone to ring, or the snow to snow, or waiting around for a yes or a no, or waiting for their hair to grow. Everyone is just waiting for the fish to bite, for the wind to fly a kite, waiting around for Friday night, or waiting perhaps for Uncle Jake, or a pot to boil, or a better break, or a string of pearls, or a pair of pants, or a wig with curls, or another chance. Everyone is just waiting. No, that's not for you. Somehow you'll escape all that waiting and staying. You'll find the bright place where boom bands are playing.
I like that. Oh, that's said so well, isn't it? I just love his writing. I just love it. It tickles my soul.
And you don't always know what you're waiting for, but it's just important. It's like you're moving through a desert sometimes, right? And you just gotta stay the course.
That's right.
I liken it to the seasons of the year. right? Living in Canada where we have 4 very distinct seasons, right? There is a time where you are waiting for the next thing to happen, like the leaves are getting crispy on the trees, and like I know because I've been through it before, they're going to fall off and the trees will be bare and it's going to be cold, and all of the nasty little viruses will die in the cold, and then we're waiting for the days to get longer, we're waiting for the heat to come back, we're waiting for people to start talking about summer patios and going to the cottage again and all of that sort of stuff. But I don't want to live my life waiting. I want to embrace the moment right here, right now, no matter how much splendor there is or how much.
Yeah, or how challenging it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you, Joe. That's really the goal for us, isn't it? Is to try to be present to what is.
Yeah.
And to embrace, and let go of these ideas that life has to be a certain way for us to be okay.
Yeah.
And it's so seductive to fall into that, into that hazard, into that pitfall. But I call it the big lie, Joe, that this idea that life has to be a certain way, we have to be a certain way to be okay. It's the big lie. It's such nonsense.
Being fully alive in your own life. I don't know. I've been thinking about that, of just because I think I had it all turned around, and that like happy and pleasure, and that should have been the thing that I was seeking. Or if I wasn't feeling that there was something amiss. When that there's a narrowing that happens when you're focused entirely on that, or that's what happened to me anyway. And I feel like to be present even in the moments that are extremely unhappy, which is something that's a mountain I'm still trying to climb, but like I think that's my goal anyway, at this point in time.
Well, say a little more about that, Patrick. How are you experiencing that?
Well, I can tell you about how I'm not succeeding at it.
That would be relevant too. Yeah.
Sure. Well, okay, I'll just give you an example today. I want to be a writer. I am a writer. I try to write, and sometimes I do, but it's also an extremely uncomfortable process for me, and it's very challenging, and it puts me right up against my perfectionism and right up against kind of like my negative interior voice that's kind of trying to discourage me from ever writing a sentence. And so today, for example, I diverted myself from the act of writing by doing every chore that I could that was not the act of writing. Cleaning that didn't need to be done. Just about, I ate a meal extra beyond, what I really needed to eat. And in the end, I probably did cumulatively 35 minutes or so of 40 minutes of actual writing. I'm very happy with those 40 minutes, or I shouldn't say happy. They're a victory of sorts, but that is just an example of my wrestling with presence. Because that's what writing is I feel like on its fundamental level is you're being present and you're kind of accessing your imagination, and just being there and doing it. And I've got some runway, so I've got some more, some time in the next couple of days to get another bite at the apple. But yeah, that's my struggle, I guess, currently.
Maybe it's your journey. Maybe the muse is found not with pen to paper, but with hands in hot water in the sink, washing the dishes. Maybe the idea comes to you in ways you don't expect it to. And I think that waiting place is sometimes you're not ready to write. Maybe you need more thinking time. And if I go for a bike ride, or I go for a run, or I play my guitar, who knows what is going to come to me at a time like that. And it's easy to see it as avoidance or distraction. And it may be that, it may only be that, but it might also be just changing the way you're looking at things a little bit, changing what you're focusing on to let sometimes there's ideas I'm so sure about that I'm right. And the problem with being wrong is, you know what being wrong feels like for me? It feels like being right. I don't know I'm wrong. Like, it'd be great if I knew I'm not wrong, I'm going down the wrong road, right? But being wrong for me always feels like being right. And so to embrace the fact that maybe I don't have everything I need here. I just need to not find it, just get the fuck out of my way, slow down, and it'll come out of me. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes those are the times that the great stuff comes from.
One thing I've been, go right ahead.
What Joe is saying, though, I want you to hear that, Patrick, because what he's saying is we have a tendency to be negative and to interpret the things we're doing as resistance or as obstructionistic. And you know what you just said, Joe, it just may be part of the experience. Instead of separating it out and calling it a problem, that you just may not be ready to write. And and there's something percolating inside of you, and to have more trust in that percolation, right? That's taking place in that preparation that you're going through. It's almost like you're marinating yourself, right? In some kind of a sauce to get you prepared to be that wonderful voice that you have inside of you, Patrick.
Well, the thing is, it's happened before. I've got to tell myself that. I have finished things before and it got done. And the last time it happened, the last time the magic act happened, I was fairly satisfied with it. So I need to, maybe if that's just a little candle light, a little flame of warmth I can keep nearby.
That, and even to generalize that even more, right? Globalize that even more, to say, look, just to have faith in yourself that you may not write when you think you should be, but that doesn't mean that you're not engaged in the process. See, I think that we've got to watch out that to put these kinds of expectations on the experiences we have, we may be missing the bigger picture.
Everything is the creative process.
There, see, the way Joe is doing that, it's so inclusive. You hear that, Patrick? You hear how inclusive he's being.
And you know what? It helps. It gives me some insight into my shoulds.
Yeah.
And inherent in what I would just said, that
I can hear Tom in the room.
I'm shitting all over myself. Yes. Thank you, Tom.
Good Monster has just been taken off the desk and he's being shaken in front of the thing. That's what Tom would do.
Yeah. And Allen knows what's coming now, but it dovetails nicely into this. Imagine you've just read Paddling Your Own Canoe, but your arms are getting tired. Onward, up many a frightening creek, though your arms may get sore and your sneakers may leak. On and on you will hike, and I know you'll hike far and face up to your problems, whatever they are. You'll get mixed up, of course, as you already know. You'll get mixed up with many strange birds as you go, so be sure when you step with care and great tact, and remember that life is a great balancing act. Just never forget to be dexterous and deft, and never mix up your right foot from your left. And you will succeed. Yes, you will indeed. 98.75% guaranteed.
God, I love that. That is so good. The balancing act, right? He captures it, all of it.
Yeah.
We're going to get messed up and we're going to get lost and we're going to have those dark nights of the soul, right? That's going to happen. But if we stay pressed up against our experience and continue to try to integrate what we're experiencing and understand the emotional wisdom that's growing in us from it, that's the heart of emotional sobriety.
It's being here, not being there.
That's right. Hey, I like it. Joe's going to start writing a Dr. Zeus book. I hear it. I can hear it coming. Being here and not there is what we strive for. It's so true, Joe. It's so true, man. It's even more. I even hear more now that you're reading it this time than I heard the first time when you read it.
You can see why people go to the same group every week to read the same book over and over again.
Great, great point. Right on, man. Right on.
Because it means something a little different every time.
Yeah, that's right. A different person is hearing it than they did last time they read page 86 or whatever it happens to be, right?
How is this hitting you this time, Joe?
This Dr. Zeus,
Yeah.
it's simpler than I think it is.
Yeah.
I get stressed out and I get called on this more now. Like I just start spinning about having to fix things. Now, I'm assuming something's broken. I'm assuming I'm not good enough. I'm assuming what I've done isn't good enough. I'm assuming this outcome isn't good enough. And is that true? Maybe it is, but maybe it's not. Again, I can be absolutely certain and dead wrong at the same time. I've done it many times before and I'm going to do it again. So the best I can do is to know when I'm completely certain. I can ask myself, okay, Joe, maybe you're right. What else could this mean?
Are you guilty? Are you guilty of having too high levels of certitude at times? That's not my problem at the moment.
Yeah, both. I can be plagued with self-doubt and, toxically confident.
That's good. That's a new phrase, Joe. I've never heard. Say more about that. Toxically confident.
Well, I'm just so the listeners know too, I just made it up now. That's how ad libbing goes.
Oh, I love it.
But what it means to me is it is like we want our children to have faith in themselves, to feel worthy, to be confident.
Yeah.
We encourage people new to the recovery process to be positive, to be grateful, to think of what's good. But that can be taken to a toxic extreme where it's this sort of toxic positivity or toxic certainty or this unwillingness to live life on life's terms, wanting to control. Anything I can control is dead. And I don't want a dead life.
Yeah.
Anything you could want to control is dead?
Yeah. I mean, if it's a living thing, it's becoming. It's not in a state of constantness. It's in a state of change. Every relationship, the world around us, the environment, our brains.
Right on, Joe. That's right on. How does that strike you, Patrick? It sounds like that didn't sit a good way for you, or
No. I want to clarify it. It's kind of profound. I mean, the way that it hit me. I mean, I think like I just have a glimpse of myself, of course, but also other friends in the program I've had, people I've known, where after our lives have been out of control for so long, and we finally get a taste of stability, there's a kind of like rushing towards just kind of imposing these frameworks onto life rather than living it in a way that's I guess like fully sensitive. And then we run into further nooks and crannies and encounter new types and bigger types of problems. But yeah, I mean, emotional sobriety is just kind of like the deepest forest there is, and if I can at least just kind of keep that in mind as I proceed through this, maybe I'd be heading in the general right direction.
The thing Alan was talking about that I was doing a presentation on was about how to avoid perfectionism. It was called Sober Enough.
Yep, that's right.
The idea of not trying to be perfect, not trying to do the ultimate, whatever it is, 12-step path, eightfold path, whatever one's recovery journey looks like. But, there's only a 1 or a 0 in a score for recovery. Are you clean and sober in accordance with your bottom line? Yes or no? If you're a yes, you're tied for first place with everybody else. And if you're a no, you're only 1 step away from being tied for first place with everybody else.
Right on. That's a great way to say it, Joe. Sober enough.
Yeah. And perfectionism is the opposite of emotional sobriety. Like it isn't even emotional reality.
Yeah.
And isn't that what inebriety is? Like, not being sober, not being in reality. If I can be in reality, no matter how hard it feels, I am emotionally sober.
Yeah.
I don't have to be happy to be emotionally sober. I don't have to be successful to be emotionally sober.
Boy,
But I
everybody needs
can't,
to hear that,
yeah,
Joe. That's right. Because it's
yeah.
not, and I hope people get that. It's not about being happy.
And some would retort, right? Then what's the point? But as Herb Kagan told me, it's emotional freedom, right? And that's its own thing. A
That's the
deep.
point. It is emotional freedom. That's the point, right? It is. It's emotional freedom. It's being able to be in this world and find a way to be in this world where you're okay, regardless of what's going on.
Can I tell you just something that made me very sad that ties into this? The other day is I have a friend who is not sober, relapse very often, and he told me yesterday via text. I took him to a meeting, and he told me via text that he just can't. He has this very volatile relationship with his mother, and there's a lot of anger. He's practically, I mean, he's like a few inches away from homelessness at any given moment, but like he just can't. He feels like it's an either or. Like he just can't be in this world unless he's loaded. And it's around and around, and it's been for years. It's been around and around with this person, and I want that so badly for him to be able to exist in the world, because that's what I wanted for me, and that's what I'm trying to work out for myself right now. But it's nothing. This is not the thing that you can give somebody. It's something they give themselves, right? But
You can inspire people to look at this stuff, though, Patrick, and I think that's what we're doing. Is we're trying to inspire people to say that, look, there is another possibility here. I like to think of recovery as the discovery of these new possibilities. And that's, I think, emotional sobriety is a treasure chest. It contains so many discoveries, so many jewels, so many gems, so much wealth and wisdom.
Part of accepting life as it comes is also knowing that we have to start where we're at.
Yeah.
Like when we get too wrapped up, and this is when I get spinning in things in the past that I want to relitigate, and wrongs that should be righted, uh, or things about the future and the uncertainty of it. And I want to be sure. I want to know how much money I'll have in my retirement, and that I won't, die broke, or I won't get so sick I can't afford to live and look after my responsibilities. That's not life on earth. That's devoid of reality. I am now off the emotional sobriety boat, because I'm demanding absolute answers that can't be given to a life on earth with people who are emotionally sober. And being emotionally sober is just that awareness, not the answers, just the awareness. And I want to be more aware. In Buddhism, they call it the beginner's mind, right? Like, like it's my assumptions that are getting me down, not,
Yeah.
like my knowledge, my acumen, right? Sometimes that can help. Sometimes it's a hindrance. Sometimes I need to let it go and see what else is there.
So well said, Joe. So well said.
Well, I mean, emotional sobriety just hit the zeitgeist of the moment. Before, like in the sort of mainstream media, there was this whole, what was the book called? Emotional maturity or emotional
Oh yeah,
IQ.
yeah. Emotional IQ by
Yeah, and we cycle around these things, and in this day and age, we've just gone through COVID. There, like what we think is real is turned completely upside down. What we think is dependable, like it used to be, you think, well, I need some security. I'm going to be a letter carrier. Letters, what's a letter? It says a Generation Z person. Like a letter? What's a letter?
Yeah, I don't think they know where to put the stamp on those. I've got both of your books in pretty constant rotation. Your daily reflections, your secular daily reflections, Joe, and then Allen's 12 Essential Insights. What did the writing those mean for like deepening your understanding of these subjects?
you want to take a shot at that first, Joe, and then I'll
Sure. Like for Allen, it wasn't his first book. So he kind of probably had a better sense of what the process would be than me. I'd written plenty of articles for magazines. I've done journalism for finance, for music, for wellness and addiction and recovery. I'd written songs, plenty of them, right? But I hadn't written a book. And I got called out on my complaining about, how can it be in the 21st century there isn't a secular daily reflection book? Like I've been to, there's a place in Toronto, used to be called the world's biggest bookstore. And I would complain about this for a few weeks and someone called me out on it. Well, Joe, who do you think the person tell me about this person who would have written this book for you? What would they look like? What would they act like? What would their background be? And I could see what they were getting at. And I said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. And at 200 daily reflections, I thought I can never get to 365. And at 300, I wish there was 500 days in the year because I just had ideas. I broke it down, right? I said, okay, what I'm really trying to do is I'm not trying to create wisdom. I'm trying to share wisdom that I've gotten over the years. And what were the 10 best ideas I've heard in year one? The 10 best ideas I heard in year 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And I sort of thought about that. And I'd already been collecting all of these quotes and I didn't know why, but this was it. And I had a more extensive library than I thought I did. And like, I just went back to some gems and, some of them were Stoics and some of them were rock stars and some of them were religious people, because I don't think because someone believes in a supernatural being, they're not a free thinker. I know some atheists that are not free thinkers because they're very rigid in their viewpoint and they're not open to having someone change their mind. So the process for me was one of, being willing to take on a task and go in a direction where I didn't have a map for it because no one had made one, but other people had done it before me. Other people had planted a shade tree under which they would never sit because they died, right? Those who came before me had done this before, so I wasn't recreating anything. I just had to go out there and do it. And whenever I got stuck, it was about trying to be an expert. And I'm not trying to be an expert. I'm trying to share what I've already know, what I've already learned. And so I just needed to find that and get it out there.
So I'll say this real quick, Patrick, and then as you know, I need to jump off because I've got another meeting here in a couple minutes. Um, my experience is that something was being channeled through me when I wrote that book. Because when I go back and read it, I don't recognize that some of the stuff I talked about. And I said, man, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm pretty, it's like I'm amazed at some of the things that came out of that book. And at the time I was doing it, I didn't have that sense that this was coming together as well as it's come together. Now, when I look back, I'm very proud of that body of work that I produced. And it is, like Joe said, I think a synthesis of all of the work before that, which I'm really glad for. But I think it came together in a wonderful way that I did, but I'm not so sure I'm completely responsible for. It's like I was being inspired by something. And I think it's by this process, by the fellowship, by you, by people like Joe. And, I think that it's like it takes a lot of people to put together a space shuttle. And I think a lot of people influenced me in terms of the creation of that. And while my name's on it, I think I could have many names on that book and everyone name on there would be appropriate to put on that book, like as a third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth, and 100th co-author of the experience. So that's been my experience, Joe.
Nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
I'm not known for quoting the Bible, so I thought I'd get that in there.
All right. I got to run, you guys. It's been a wonderful show. Take care.
Still there?
Yep.
Can you say that again? There's
So-
nothing new under the sun.
In that I don't need to create it. I need to find it. It's already in me. Sometimes I need to slow down, not speed up. Another cup of coffee isn't what I need. I need to chill the fuck out, right? Just sort of relax into it a little bit. And at times it's what you were trying to do. I've got to get pen to paper. I got to get my hands on the keys and start composing, right? I need a first draft, and then, I'll work at it from there. But yeah, like I don't have the way it always happens, right? It happens a number of ways. Sometimes when I'm avoiding something, my mind is opened up to something else, and like all of the quotations in my book, maybe 1 out of 10 of them are from addiction recovery literature. 9 out of 10 of them are from me being distracted somewhere. But what a beneficial, side trip that was when I was, just goofing off.
Well, that particular thing, the wide spectrum of voices is, I think, what's so good about its flavor is that, like, it's about recovery ostensibly, or not ostensibly, it's about recovery, but it folds in all these thinkers to kind of create this singular effect.
Yeah, because, like from Dr. Seuss to Socrates, right? Like to Einstein, to Sinead O'Connor, right?
Yeah.
It's just, we're all saying the same stuff, right? We're we've all got only two eyes, couple of years, right? There's only so much of the world to take in. Like, we can't go create a new experience. We just need to tell people what we're seeing.
Well, as I was saying to Allen, or my response, I suppose, to what you guys were saying earlier about the writing wrestling is just trying to be more of a vessel for the creative spirit, not freaking out as much or going for that next cup of coffee. That's something I'm specifically guilty of. Drink a lot of coffee, and to just try and listen more.
Somewhere in your programming and conditioning, that's a solution. But that's your addict brain talking too, right? Like, I need stimulation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not.
When's the last time you did an episode of Rebellion Dogs?
I just posted one with Bill Shaberg, He wrote Writing the Big Book, The Creation of AA 4 years ago. So here we are 4 years later, right? And he's done how many presentations? He's talked to so many people about it. More has been revealed, right? Like, he's been shown data he didn't find in his research, right? He's taken on new ways of looking at things that he didn't have when, like, 11 years of research, but still in these 4 years, he's gotten twice as much information as he had then, right? Just as a for instance, Bill Wilson thought he had finished writing the big book before writing the steps. If you don't know about the order the chapters were written in, you might fall into the simple idea that they were written chronologically, that chapter 1 was written first, then 2, then 3. But he wrote his story, and there is a solution in one sitting. And then when he was told, Bill, we need more, we got this scheme that we're going to try to get $1 and we'll send them, 4 or 5 chapters. So then he wrote more about alcoholism and we agnostics. And if you know the book Alcoholics Anonymous, the next chapters we read are how it works. These are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery, into action. This is how we work these steps that we've just talked about. But he hadn't invented them yet. He didn't write that. He wrote working with others. That was the next chapter he wrote. And he thought that was done. So he describes the problem that, unlike Silkworth, who says once alcohol is in your body, you have this allergic-like reaction where you are now compulsively geared towards, drinking to oblivion. He said, no, you are defenseless against the first drink. Without alcohol in you, your untreated alcoholism will drink, right? Because shit is going to happen. You'll get stuck. You'll be in the waiting place or whatever Dr. Zeus is talking about. And what are you going to do about that? So to him, the problem was you are defenseless against, the probability of drinking, and that his solution was you need something providential. You need something bigger than yourself. He saw it as a Abrahamic God, but you need something bigger than yourself to overcome that. By yourself alone, trying to solve this problem, not going to happen. And that's what he wrote in those first 4 chapters, his own story. There is a solution, more about alcoholism, which is stories of like the jaywalker and about Jim, who was sober and then just thought he'd go to a bar, have a glass of milk and a sandwich, getting ready for a sales call. And he thought a shot of whiskey, and like just insane thinking, right? But stuff he did sober, right? So he's describing more of what he wrote about in, there is a solution, describing the problem. And when none of that works, as it didn't with him, he had the white light experience that I haven't had. But when he was in Akron, when the business deal had gone bad and he was in the hotel bar, that providential experience he had of the white light experience wasn't keeping him sober. He knew he had to talk to another alcoholic, started making phone calls on a payphone, right? And got in touch with Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob didn't get sober, but Bill Wilson stayed sober, right? Working with others when all else fails. Working with another alcohol, nothing chairs are, and he knew he was going to write something for families and maybe something to employers, but he thought he was done when he wrote that. And it was only later he came up with the steps idea in the 11th hour. So
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a must listen episode. My intro to all of that wasn't the book. It was the TV movie starring James Woods as Bill W. that I watched while I was in rehab, which is actually pretty good, I thought.
Yeah. It was really good. It wasn't factually accurate because it's based on a lot of the myths that predate William Schaberg's research, where he took a look at the stories that were told and written down, many of them by Bill Wilson. Like he doesn't deny that Bill Wilson fabricates stories.
A little bit of embellishment.
Yeah, because he's trying to get people sober. He's not trying to be an archivist. He's not trying to be a historian. He's trying to help the next person get sober. The example Bill Schaberg uses is the Ebby Thatcher story, the original story about, one alcoholic talking to another over his kitchen table. That's the way he tells the story. But Ebby Thatcher tells the story very different. It wasn't even during the day. It was at night over dinner with other guests in the room, right? But all of that extra stuff, there was a woman from upstairs who came down, and then they went from dinner upstairs and they were talking about this and talking about that. And Bill Wilson takes all that out of the story because the story is about one alcoholic talking to another. So he just told it in a way that just, it's a better story, right? It's like a historical fiction, right? It's based on real people in a time that real things happened. But, you gotta know whether it helps move the story along. And there's all kinds of details that happen in real life, like divorces or children, or sometimes you write all of those things out of the story because they don't help move your story along. You've got to be true to your meaning, your purpose, your objective. And his objective, Bill Wilson's objective, was to help people find recovery, right? And he was, he went on his training. His training was selling stocks in companies people had never heard of that would do things that he had no certainty they would, but maybe, like he was a bit of a snake oil salesman, but he did what kept him sober was his newfound meaning in life, to help the next person he meets find recovery. And even when he did all that work with the traditions, it was to help a fellowship of crazy ass motherfuckers who don't have boundaries and don't have, mental health, to get this bus full of bozos from one town to the other without killing themselves, right? Just here's some suggestions based on all the things that went wrong in early AA experience, right? That because again, same goal, same purpose. He wanted, someone else to find sobriety, right? And so that's who Bill Wilson was, and he didn't sell 1 million books until he died. Right? We canonized him. We turned his word into sacred text. He didn't. He didn't go to big book meetings.
We know what, it was probably best for him that he didn't get to see all that. Helped keep him right sized, maybe.
There's another documentary that you can buy off of like Apple Movies or whatever. It's called I think it's just called Bill W. Like, it's a documentary made by two guys who aren't alcoholics. And
yeah, I heard about this. It's My Name is Bill W., I think is what it's called.
Yeah. And it had some never before seen like letters he'd written, like what it taught me, a fairly knowledgeable person about AA history, was it dawned on me that Bill Wilson created a fellowship that would benefit millions, and he could never join it. Like, by joining it means you can leave it, right? You and I have the autonomy to go, fuck you guys, I quit, right? And, so what, right? It's not like we pull our hand out of the water and this image of where our hand used to be exists. No one will notice we're gone, right? We can just quit tomorrow and no one will notice or care. But that wasn't true for him. He couldn't go to a meeting and complain about AA and how stupid it is.
Yeah, that's a paradox, huh? Well, man, I'm so sold on that episode. I'll make sure that I put a link for it in the show notes, and I'm glad that we got to discuss this a little bit as a tag after all the places you'll go.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's,
I think this will be a good episode because it gets to simple truths, and sometimes it's just a bunch of white male privileged guys, big sausage fest, right? But
right.
if you get down to like the very basic child-like stuff, I think it it has a better chance of landing with more people, I think.
For sure. And long term, I would love to do a series on the traditions as we've discussed. And I'd love to do some relationship stuff,
Yeah.
new, old, extinct,
Yeah.
nascent relationships. I think
Yeah.
that there's a lot of emotional sobriety lessons within that.
Yeah, I just reviewed a book by Joe Nowinski, he's been very prolific. He wrote the 12-step facilitation manual, which is the Minnesota model, right, of using sort of the 12-step model, but with a facilitator, with a counselor in a residential treatment center, like getting them through steps 0 to 5, right? And then aftercare for the rest, right? And the warm handoff to AA meetings and an AA community. He wrote the manual for the facilitators, not for the alcoholics, who were doing that. And he wrote a bunch of other books, the science behind this, how it works and why, the science behind the 12 steps. And he took a lot of heat for these things because of the skeptics who go, AA doesn't have any more success rate than spontaneous recovery, people who just quit on their own, right? And like everybody who got sober in AA would have got sober anyway. It wasn't AA, it was their decision to quit drinking, right? And so there's plenty of critics of what he was writing about, but nevertheless he said, well, here's what the science says, right? As clinically and as objectively as they can, comparing doing this to other things. Like let's face it, lifestyle medicine is dealing with people who need to lose weight, and they wouldn't have to take a single pill if they just could, right? People
Yeah.
have to stop smoking, or they wouldn't have to take all this cancer treatment, right? People who don't stop drinking, right? They'd be fine. Lifestyle medicine is, it's a bonanza for big pharma because we have a death wish, right? We don't look after ourselves, right? Like self-knowledge isn't enough, right? You are an alcoholic and you can't drink. Thanks, Doc. I'm going to the bar and talk to my friends about this.
That'll be a $90 copay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming by, Joe.
Until next time, keep the cards and letters coming.
All right, I will.
Never missed an episode. I don't know how many other people can say that. I love everything you've done so far.
Change your life, change your myth, cultivate your narrative with whomever you